What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Yeats. I don't even know what this is, like Unusual Whales 401 500. But in this one, going to talk a little bit about volume and open interest. As you guys know, I'm always kind of trying to expand what it is I know. This has been working for me lately. If you follow my Twitter, you've probably seen some of the bigger plays. So we're trying to figure out why that's happening, what's making it work. So the first thing I want to talk about is volume as a measurement, open interest as a measurement. Volume is the amount of contracts that are changing hands. Open interests are the amount of contracts that are held for a position. What's important to know is that open interest changes daily. So if you follow my mouse here, you see that the open interest is 463. So if that were to change, you don't see that throughout the day. Whereas the volume, I can follow throughout the day. And so it might have been 2,000 right here at 9 a.m. And then at noon, it could have been 2,424. So that's a dynamic measurement. Open interest is a static measurement. So the way I've been looking at the plays is like this. I'm looking for a high volume to open interest ratio. High volume means that there's a lot of stuff happening, a lot of action, calls changing hands, puts changing hands. And the higher that ratio is, the more unusual it is. Just as a general rule of thumb, volume that's less than the open interest typically means more call sells, for example, if you're looking on the call side. And then at a ratio of 1 to higher, it means buys. So let's look at Expedia here. I want to do a few different examples. So Expedia, we're looking to see what the volume open interest is if we like this play. So let's take a look here, quick view. It's the easiest way to just check where the highest the highest amount of contracts changing hands. And we see here Expedia on the further out strikes, actually, is a lot of activity. So just starting from the bottom up on that 218, we see 1485 to 4137, not too exciting. On the 617s, we see 1585, 12396, not that exciting. On the puts here for the 617, this is kind of interesting. We see 1610 to 267s. That's roughly 7 volume to open interest. So that's something to keep an eye on for the long side. Could be hedging for Omicron. That's how I look at a lot of the travel stuff. 1.7 getting a little closer. We see some calls for the 160 coming through. And then right here, the 1223, 2,424 to 463. That's roughly 5 or 6 volume and open interest. That's a high number. So that has our interest. So I'm going to keep that number in mind, the 1223, 162.50. And then I'm going to go to the historical flow. Why I'm going to go to the historical flow is because I want to see if this is new activity or if this is kind of a carryover from frenzied activity, which could be good or bad depending how you look at it. So here we see that on the 16th, on Thursday, it actually had a really, really, really frenzied day of trading. We see the open interest carried over to 463, and then we see the volume went to 2,424 that next day. So this is something that you can look at 2 different ways. First way you can look at it is nothing too major, really outside of the ordinary was happening on the 17th, right? But what this also means is that we're seeing some continued betting. So for this kind, where I've seen a lot of volume on Thursday, a lot of volume on Friday, I'm going to be patient and I'm going to wait for the open interest on Monday when we open up. I want to see how many people are still holding on to that position. If I see the open interest is still pretty low or near that 463, then I'm thinking to myself, okay, this was a lot of people mostly getting out of the position with that volume. But if that OI spikes, then I'm saying, okay, this was people actually buying into the position. One more thing that I want to point out is you're always, always, always going to look at what the chart action was if you're looking at this on the end of the day. So for example, the 162.50, right? Let's go look at the price action for Expedia. Let's see here. So if we look at the price action for Expedia, we see that on Friday, it actually came pretty close on the open to hitting that 162, 162.50. Not quite in the money, but pretty damn close. Why that's important is because when something's rocketing up like that on the open, then of course what you're going to see is this huge volume and open interest spike, right? Because people, that's now getting closer to in the money. So one thing you always want to check throughout the day is, okay, how did this stock open? What was the high of day? If the high of day or the open is near at the money, in the money, then you can disregard this. Not that it's not possible, not that it's not valid, but for our purposes of finding the most unusual plays, this is one we're just going to kind of let go. So next I want to show you right here, the same concept with GPS. So with GAP, what we see here, interestingly enough, is green across the board, right? 1223, 1223, 121. So not only targeting those 17 strikes. Going up from the bottom, we see this kind of even. Not that much to write home about, but look at the 1650C on the 1223. We see 554 to 86. That's interesting to me. 121, not interesting. The 1217, not interesting. But look here at the 1223, 4453 volume, 148 open interest. That to me is interesting. So I'm going to go look at the historical flow. When I go there to the 1223, 17.5, what I see here is something that's really, really aggressively bullish for me, which is that this volume came in today, or came in Friday. This was not a holdover. This was a huge amount of betting on that particular stock in that moment. So I'm going to go now look at the chart. Remember what we talked about earlier? I'm going to go take a look at GPS. Let's take a look at the action on Friday. So on Friday, it went as high as 1705. 1705. But I'm going to teach you how to kind of think a little bit more critically, right? So if the spike that we saw in the 17.5 was because it got to 1705 in the latter part of the session, you got to ask yourself why on Thursday did we not see that same kind of activity, right? On Thursday, just after the open, it went a little bit higher even. No, it's the same, 1705. But if we go back to our daily tracker here, you see that 1216 didn't see that kind of action on Thursday. So that leads me to believe that this is something anomalous. That plus the fact that 1705 is close to at the money, but it's still, nearly 3% away. So this is just learning how to think critically, right? You've got a stock that was more than 3% away from the 17.5s being in the money. You've got a stock where on Thursday, where it reached the same heights, you didn't see that kind of activity around the 17.5. So that to me says that this is definitely one to watch. It's now on my watch list. I want to see what happens with that. Last one I want you to look at is CRM. So CRM here, if we go to quick view, 1217 puts, I'm going to ignore because it was 1217. Got 1223, 265, 5,484 volume, 313 open interest. The 1231, 260s, again, another high number, not crazy high. And the 121s, negligible. So I'm looking at this 265, and I'm thinking, okay, that's more than 10 times volume open interest. Let's see what went on with the stock that day. So CRM went as high as 255. So you got a stock that went as high as 255. So then you've got to ask yourself, why are we seeing 265 have that kind of volume? I mean, that's well outside the money. That's 1, 2, 3. That's 5% outside the money, nearly 4-something% outside the money. So it doesn't make sense for people to be making that run on the 1223 for no reason. Let's go look at the historical flow. on the 265, 1223. We see that volume all came in that day. So to me, that's another one to watch. Again, thinking critically, you've got a stock that wasn't in the money, at the money, or anything like that from the morning session pop. Yet that volume happened. That volume wasn't a part of a larger trend. So to me, that's another one to put on the watch list. So that's just kind of, I'm going to add it to my watch list right now, actually. So that's just to me kind of how I look at using volume open interest. I mean, there's much more detailed stuff, which we'll get into later, but that's kind of the basics of what you're looking for. All right, thanks, guys.